Introduction to Air Regulations. This video is designed to assist viewers understand the basics of Kansas air quality regulations. In Kansas, the KDHE Bureau of Air is the authority that monitors, regulates, and permits air emission sources and activities through the state's EPA-approved State Implementation Plan, or SIP, and through adoption of some federal air quality rules and interpretations. Resources on regulations, permitting, emission inventory, monitoring, planning, and public notices for permits, regulations, and other actions can be found on their webpage. The first Kansas Air Quality Act was issued in 1967. The current Air Quality Act statutes are listed under Kansas Statutes Annotated, Chapter 65, Article 30. These statutes give the KDHE Secretary and Division of Environment the authority to adopt, amend, repeal rules and regulations, and promulgate rules and regulations to establish standards to ensure Kansas is in compliance with the Federal Clean Air Act. The Kansas Air Quality Regulations are under Kansas Administrative Regulations, K.A.R. 28-19. K-State's Small Business Environmental Assistance Program, or SBEAP, has links to all of the Kansas and EPA air quality regulations on its website for ease of access and convenience. Let's discuss the most frequently cited regulations that you will see in permits and correspondence from KDHE Bureau of Air. K.A.R. 2819-9 is a relocation notification requirement for portable operations like rock crushers. 2819-20 is a particulate limit standard that is based on processed material throughput. 2819-30 through 32 is an opacity or other emission limits for indirect heating units such as boilers. 2819-300 through 350 are the construction, approval, and permitting regulations, including prevention of significant deterioration, or PSD permitting. 2819-500 through 564 are the operating permit regulations, including Title V's, also known as Class 1s, Class 2, and Class 2 permit by rule permits. 2819-645 are the open burning restrictions and requirements. 2819-650 is a general opacity limit. These limits apply to all emission units in Kansas unless the unit is subject to another opacity limit under another regulation, such as K.A.R. 2819-31 for indirect heating units, or to an opacity limit in a federal rule that is applicable to the unit. 2819-720 is the rule that KDHE uses to adopt federal rules under 40 CFR Part 60 New Source Performance Standards. 2819-735 is the rule that KDHE uses to adopt federal rules under 40 CFR Part 61 National Emission Standards for Hazardous Air Pollutants. 2819-750 is the rule that KDHE uses to adopt by reference 40 CFR Part 63 National Emission Standards for Hazardous Air Pollutants, also known as MAC standards. In Johnson and Wyandotte County, there are specific rules called Reasonably Achievable Control Technology, or RACT rules. These rules only apply in those counties and were developed and are implemented to regulate VOC and NOx emissions to ensure the area remains in attainment for the National Ambient Air Quality Standard, or NAAQS, for ozone. As we've discussed, KDHE's Bureau of Air has adopted by reference most of EPA's air regulations. K-State SBEAP has links to the federal ECFR on our website for your convenience. These federal rules can apply to your facility based on its sector type, Standard Industrial Code, North American Industrial Code System, or to particular equipment or manufacturing process types. For example, in addition to state boiler rules, federal regulations have been adopted for boilers by Kansas. Applicability of these rules depend on numerous factors, such as type of boiler, size of boiler, fuels fired, or year the boiler was constructed, reconstructed, or modified, and the PTE of emissions of hazardous air pollutants at your facility can determine what regulations are applicable to your boiler. The very first national emission standards for hazardous air pollutants were the federal regulations under 40 CFR Part 61. These regulations were health-based regulations and were not based on the types of control technology or emission unit operating technology available, as are the newer NESHAPS. The regulations in 40 CFR Part 60 are called the New Source Performance Standards, or NSPS. They ensure new sources are less polluting than old sources and apply to new, modified, and reconstructed affected facilities. These rules are process or source specific and are based on the construction or modification date of an affected facility. An affected facility is any apparatus to which an NSPS standard is applicable. NSPS standards exist for engines, landfills, boilers, equipment leaks, oil and gas, air curtain combustors, and many other processes and operations. The rules under 40 CFR Part 63 are the newer NESHAPS, also known as Maximum Achievable Control Technology, or MACT rules. These rules are source type specific and control technology based. They apply to existing, new, modified, and reconstructed affected sources. The purpose of these regulations are to ensure all sources under a category meet achievable emission standards that target reductions in hazardous air pollutants. These rules apply to sources who have emissions of hazardous air pollutants at major or area, also known as minor sources. Some of the national emission standards for hazardous air pollutant rules apply to both major and area sources of HAP emissions. NESHAP rules apply to some common equipment or process operations, such as engines, boilers, gasoline dispensing, miscellaneous surface coating, and metal finishing. For assistance identifying rules and regulations that apply to your facility operations, K-State Small Business Environmental Assistance Program provides free and confidential technical assistance to small businesses in Kansas. If you are a small business in another state, please contact your state SBEAP. Additional information can be found on the National SBEAP website.